Hi, welcome. Let's start with some sound. Okay, so today's video is going to include a few things. First, we're going to talk a little bit about Sibyls and give an example of the quote unquote utterances. It was kind of enlightening for me because I hadn't ever really put that together as far as my writings and my poetry. I have journals from, I started writing when I was very young in a journal. I didn't keep some journals. Some journals got lost over the years, but I have always written very odd poetry. And so today I'm going to give an example and then break down actually what the translation is within the words, which is kind of new to me. It came through after I wrote it because I was like, this doesn't really make sense. And then I realized it was like eight to nine messages in one writing. So we'll get to that in a moment. But I also wanted to share a little bit about intuitive muscle healing because, excitingly, I took a class this past Saturday. I'm not sure if you're aware of Dr. B. Sirius and Billy Carson, who are influencers within the community of metaphysics and healing, and also finances and self-worth and that type of thing. So it was exciting to be a part of that event. And there was so we'll just go right into that part. So if you don't know, I will say it again, and share a little bit why I've thought this. So myself, I've struggled with the side that has dreams and feels things and sees things that may not be as obvious to everyone else. And for a long time it was just like conspiracy theories, but now those theories have been coming true, especially within the last 20 years. And so I had joined a group a couple of years back, or a few years back, about 5 years ago, and basically was unaware of my codependency, my own narcissistic tendencies, and especially like my wounded child. But before that, what I was aware of is how unavailable emotions are in our culture. Meaning, no matter what gender you are, when it comes to crying or being upset, we live in a culture that is very be happy narrative. Think positive. Do well, and good things will come to you. And these are not that these things aren't helpful and true, but if there is subconscious emotional trauma happening, the subconscious is always going to take over. So through my profession, massage therapy, and then also my own personal research and education, I've learned a lot about the body. And there's a book out there called The Body Keeps the Score, which was written by doctors and psychologists. Basically, it's written by one person, but it's a collaboration of a lot of research into our recent past where a lot of different types of traumas were used to try to help people heal. And then over time, they started realizing that these traumas are trapped in the body. And while I was in the relationship and then working towards getting out of it and working towards healing my own inner traumas, I would self-massage. I call it an S-curve tool to work on my back, get massages, but also just use my own hands to massage. And what I would notice in certain areas is when I would push on it or work on it, it was extremely sore. I would cry while I was working on it. And I actually have a video up here, Intuitive Intuition Part 1, where I do start crying during showing you an example. And so this is one of the ways that I intuitively bring self-healing to myself and try to share it with you guys and others, people I work on, so that they can also subconsciously heal what might be stuck in the body. So with that said, during this event, they shared some stretches involving the psoas. So without giving up too much information, because I know they're still working on selling these tickets and promoting this workshop, which has a lot of information that isn't always out there. And it also has some information that is already out there. Both of these speakers have their own platforms and have shared their insights and information. So it was just really, it was cool to be like a participant in this large group of like-minded people, basically. Even if we can't see each other and we don't talk to each other, it was just really awesome to be in that energy, knowing that we were all there for the same reason. So that was really cool. And it was nice for me because it brought some healing as far as group work, because I am not as trusting of group work as I used to be. Not that I don't think it's productive, and it's something that I believe group work and community work is where we're going to find healing, but it doesn't mean that might always work for everyone, especially if you're healing from any kind of trauma, because sometimes those things can be narcissistic, codependent, and not wanting to actually support. So this was the opposite. So with the psoas, so I'm going to go through the body one more time and what I learned about this particular part of the body. So do I have a picture of the body? Do I have my book? I'm going to pause this. Well, when I pause it, then it starts glitching, so I'm not going to pause it. But if you're watching right now, you can fast forward a few seconds and get to the part. It's okay. I'm just going to use myself. So, and a description. You can use your imagination. It's great practice for that. Okay. So as I've described before, your head. So we have our front and we have our back. And we have our front chakras and we have our back chakras. And as we go into learning about our chakras and learning about our inner workings, we are affecting our muscles as well. And so we can relate the head and the neck to the crown and the throat chakra. There are other chakras. We have a chakra right here. We have so many chakras, but we also have important chakra right here and right here. This is also because we have sutures, meaning we have joints, hidden joints in these areas. So, and this is why we'll often see sometimes what is called a cleft lip, because there's actually a chakra there. So when it comes to headaches, eye pain, tooth pain, ear pain, nose pain, you can relate those to the senses and the mirror of it. So if you're having headaches, you might be overthinking, or somebody might be putting too much, say like studying upon you, or you might be researching too much, putting too much into your head, or someone else might be trying to put too much into your head. If it's your ears, you might be not being heard, or you are not listening. If it's your mouth, you're not speaking up, or you might be speaking too much. If it's your nose, it could relate to your senses, meaning you might be overwhelmed with your senses. Also, it relates to your sinuses, right? The inside of what is in this area. What are you thinking about? What are you, what are other people might be putting upon you, telling you, or putting their airs on you, their moral high ground upon you. And then breath. Are you breathing okay? Okay? And then to your neck, you get your throat chakra, and then your neck relates to kind of like your neck holds up your head. So what are you putting upon your shoulders? What is in this area that is meant to help your access? Is it strain? Are you looking down too much? Are you looking up too much? Are you not sleeping well? Are you speaking up? Are you speaking too much? Okay, and a lot of these can correlate because they're all in the general same area. Then we get to our shoulders, and as I might have described before, so here's something that's interesting is your shoulders do this movement, and so do your hips, right? Your hips do that same movement. So when your shoulders are healthy and in alignment, oftentimes so are your hips, and then vice versa. And then you can also relate your hips to your thumbs, because guess what? Look what they do. They do the same thing. And then with your pinky, goes all the way up your arm, under here, comes up under here, up to here. Okay? Both sides. So your pinky and this area relate to your shoulders, specifically your scapula and your spine. Okay, so you can actually do tapping and stretching and movement, specifically right here. If you can literally go to your thumb and figure out what's going on with your hips and your thumbs. So, and then the shoulders, your arms are typically what you're holding on to. Your spine, and as you go down your spine is what support is. So when you get to the first part of your spine, it's typically your own doing. What are you putting on your own shoulders? What are you carrying? As you get further down your back, in the middle, this can relate to support, friends, yourself. Are you supporting yourself? And then when it gets to your hips, that is literally like where we begin. So if you're having pain in the back and your hips, it could be no family support. Self-support is minimal. And so I talk about the back chakras relating to spirit and oftentimes the past, because it's in the back. And in the front is more about kind of our identity and what is in front of us. What do we see? And what can we affect that we see? What's interesting is during this seminar event, they spoke about the psoas and releasing the psoas, because the psoas relates to the past. And I was like, what? How have I not heard about this? Well, of course, that's why I joined the event, so I could learn some new information. And without giving up the stretches, because you can, with your own, you can either, watch the workshop. Eventually, I believe that many of us will be sharing this information with people because it's so important. But it relates to releasing past traumas and So it's a form of intuitive muscle release. This one's a little different because it's actually a movement that brings relaxation to the psoas. But what I wanted to share with you all in relation to that specific exercise, what's unique about the psoas is it's a muscle that starts, does it start in the back and attach in the leg? I think so. It starts in the low back, comes forward in front of your hip bone and attaches in the front of your hip. So it's the muscle that helps bring your leg up and down. It's not a huge, it's not a like a thick muscle like you see typically in your legs, but it is a big muscle and it is quite long. And if your hips are off, if your spine's a little off, if your other muscles in your back are off, you can feel some extreme pain in your hips if your psoas isn't relaxed. So, because it begins in the back and comes to the front, yes, it will help release past traumas, bring them out into the legs. And then he used a great word about the legs. I have sheets of notes. It was long. And somebody mentioned, so two things I wanted to comment on because, and also the channel is, Black Magic 639, I think is, you guys probably know exactly what I'm talking about if you are into watching those types of things. Where was I going with that? Where was I going with that? Oh, okay. So the class is $150, the seminar. It was 11 hours. So what is that? Like just over $11 per hour? I think that's pretty decent. And then, yeah, I think a lot of us noticed the amount of money that the people who put it together made, because it really speaks to how creative you can be online and create an incredible income. So I looked at that as being an influence, not something to be like, I think that it's amazing the world we live in today. You can do that, which was mentioned in the workshop. Okay, so back to the psoas and the legs. So as I mentioned before, your legs are, we walk with our legs. So our legs can show us what we might be stuck in, where we might be moving forward too quickly, or we're not moving forward at all. So with the psoas connecting to the front of the leg, okay. Here it is. Steps. Legacy. I loved that. I hadn't heard of that before. Legacy. So if I agree, and this is, I just want to promote this, and this is what I share here and on my Patreon, is ways to help release stuck traumas that are locked into your muscles intuitively. Taking the time to massage yourself. And what's unique about all of these exercises, including the stretches that they showed in this workshop, is that you don't have to consciously remember what it is that you're releasing. Your muscles remember. Your muscles remember. Your muscles have their own, everything in our body has like their own mind and their own way of working. And so you don't have to be like, oh, this is, if it shows up, that's okay, right? It may show up like as you're releasing, you might feel emotions you haven't felt in a long time. You might feel certain things that you haven't felt in a long time because it's being released. And this is where movement is great and meditation is great, because you're able to continue the release in a fairly peaceful way. Now, as I've said before, I've mentioned, like, if it's anger that shows up, movement is fantastic always. And personally, I like to break things. So I save my glass that I don't recycle, and I get a big box and sometimes double it up, and I'll let that be where I break the glass. Of course, I wear glasses or goggles just in case, be careful. But this, if it creates a somatic release. Other ways of doing that could be, I've heard suggestions of like throwing a heavy rock, boxing, ways to release anger literally, knowing that that's exactly what you're doing. Because movement, along with the intuitive muscle exercises where you tap into your intuition and release that, because we have had trapped traumas in our bodies sometimes for so long, when it releases, the things that kept it trapped there are also being released. So be aware of that. This is why it's important to make sure you get plenty of rest, drink plenty of water, have some fun, and be aware. Just be aware that, oh, my mood might be shifting right now because I did some muscle releasing. My mood might be shifting right now or I might be feeling sad right now because I did some muscle releasing. You might also feel moments of anxiety or what we consider like stress. And so tapping is great to help remind you. I like to use the tools that I learned from another YouTube person, where you use your thumb, you tap your thumb and you say, I am not my emotional flashbacks. I am not my emotional flashbacks. I am not my emotional flashbacks. And then once you've, let your body know what's happening, because that's part of the keys as we release things. It's a wonderful key for the body and mind to be able to say, oh, even if it's you get a massage, or you started running, or you took a dance class, the next day you might be very emotional, and you might be able to say, oh, this is because I released, something's been released in my body, I let it out. And okay, so that was exciting because I hadn't thought of that and didn't put that together. So that was great information. Thank you so much for that information. Okay, and then the other thing before we get off is to share the Sibyl utterances, or my utterances, with you guys. So for me with the writing, it's unique. Sometimes I'll be writing about my day and what I consider like channelings or messages, or certain words will just come through. And so recently, because of just kind of everything that's been going on in the world, noticing these giant shifts, I had written about things like, oh, I had my own therapy, and then I started thinking about things like, because I've shared about Hebrew. So I don't know if you're of the age or in the area of the United States to remember the grocery store Alpha Beta. How did I not put that together? It was a grocery store. Okay, so I was just, sometimes I'll find something like that and it will just kind of send me on a rabbit hole, So the writing I wrote So I'm going to share two with you. The first one, Twilight Twisted, Sanctioned Bliss, Oracles Dancing Inside the Mist, Ballistic Measures of Outright Play, and Doing Egoic Images Left in Clay. Organic Mysteries, Genuine Peace, Imbuing Our Souls in Infinite Release. So decoding this is kind of talking into the magic of the peoples and the information coming in and what is going to be shared and what it does to us as we get the information and start using it. Okay. Then my third paragraph, it says spring, gardens shoving old nutrients into rich soil where dreams boil thick sauce, hickory gloss, feminine floss, modern boss. From the cryptic moss, a gate, agate crystal shines, throwing up blinds, receiving sun's shine. Utterances of roots, old tiny booths, spitting truths, Ruth. That was literally a message within this message, letting me know that this is how the Sibyls worked in the days. This is why they were called sometimes frenzied utterances, because, and this is why they would have a scribe at the time, sometimes, not all the time. Probably later. But this is where this links to the crystals under the planet. This relates to us as crystals. Throwing up the blinds, meaning the veil is being lifted. And that utterances of roots, meaning the old roots works, the roots of the planet, because the planet is a giant tree. Okay. And Ruth. This is why Ruth is in the Bible. It relates to truth. I might have some old videos about that word, but Ruth was also a Sibyl. Okay. So there's more in the writings, which I would like to do a video. Well, I'm not going to say anything right now. If it ends up there, I'll share it on the community. So that's the video for today. I wanted to share with you guys. So a little bit about intuitive muscle healing with some extra information that I recently received from the event. And then also, okay. And one last thing she says I'm allowed to tell you guys. So I had a major download the other evening. And this may relate to the Instagram reel that was going around about how water might be God. Like, have we ever considered that? And with my affinity and spiritual theory of God is basically feminine, a female, it just came to me. So, to share with you what just came to me, which is possible, maybe not possible, is that when we say that we go to heaven when we die, and we have this theory that we go up, she said to me, it's highly possible that, she didn't say it's possible, she says this is what happens. Water holds memory, and water is the oldest existing element here in this realm. So many times when we leave our bodies and our energy changes, we return to the ocean or to the water to put our memory into the water, into the planet, and to receive the memories that are in the water and from the planet. And as the waves take 1,000 years to reach the shore. So as those waves reach the shore, and those water molecules dissipate, those energies again are transformed, and they come back to us. And this is where many of the records are recorded in the earth because of the water and this as above, so below. So there's a share it for you. Okay, so along those lines, and many of us are getting all these different kind of messages. All right, so a little bit of sound before we go. Okay, one last thing. Because this came to me before as I was playing the sound. Also, one of the major key codes that was shared by Dr. Sirius B as to what these days are really came clear to explain why I've been studying the goddesses, that you see religious rites that last past what our natural Christmas, and also typically on the 6th of January is called Epiphany Day. So I find this very interesting, and I find it relates to the true Christmas. And Epiphany is a Sibyl's name. All right. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching and sharing and liking and subscribing and checking out my Patreon. Until next time.